Hello, and welcome to the Booktube Chicks Book Club live show for the month of April. This month we read The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by Abbi Waxman. And if you have never been to one of our live shows before, we're going to be talking about this book for about the next hour. And first, we are going to do our initial thoughts, where we'll go to each person and talk about a spoiler free for about 10 minutes. And then we're going to go into spoilers. So, I'm going to go ahead and let these two lovely people introduce themselves and go ahead with their initial thoughts. Kat, since you're right next to me, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. Hi, I'm Kathleen. My channel is for the love of books. I gave this book 4 stars. I actually quite enjoyed it, which was surprising because I feel like Nina is a character that you either really love or someone that she's a character that you're going to find really annoying. But surprisingly, I actually found her to be very endearing. I really liked her bubbly personality, and I enjoyed just her quirky nature, and I did enjoy her romance that she had. And I just really, really liked the story. It reminded me just a little bit of the Inheritance Games, because she finds out she finds out who her dad is, and that he's this millionaire, and that she has this whole other family that she never knew existed, and she's part of his will, and it kind of throws her life off balance, kind of thing. And I kind of really enjoyed just reading about her and reading like how her mind um, worked as far as receiving this news that she has this whole other family and she has this rich dad. And so yeah, I really, really liked it. I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into when I was reading this book, because I did not know. I didn't bother to really look up the summary before I started reading the book. It was just a book. It was a book club pick, so I just read it. But I found myself really enjoying it, so I did give it 4 stars.
Hi, my name is Desiree. You can find me as Libri Labra on like Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And I was kind of meh about going into this book only because Chloe had given us her rating, and I was like, oh, well, if Chloe rated it that, then it can't be that good. So I wasn't looking forward to it. But oh my God, I loved it so much. I loved it so much that I gave it 5 stars. I also, like, as soon as I was done with it, I called my indie bookstore to order it. So I'm going to go pick it up in like a week. And I 100% plan on rereading it. I had a library version, I had a library ebook, but I highlighted so many passages, and like they're really big passages, not just like little quotes here and there. So like I practically highlighted the whole book. I just loved it so much. I loved all of the pop culture references. I loved their representation of her anxiety, which, as someone who has anxiety, I just related so much to what she was going through. And then the mention of bullet journaling and, how she was trying to organize her life. I really enjoyed that they had her like planner thing in between chapters. um and of course the romance was adorable. Like, it was just super nerdy, and all the little facts and tidbits and trivia that they put in there, I don't know, I just love the whole thing so much. I loved it so much.
And my name is Chloe. You are on my channel. Desiree is correct. I rated this one 3 stars, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I just think I was mostly middle of the road with this book. I don't love it, but I don't dislike it. I thought it was a good book. It's for me, I know it's going to be one of those forgettable books. And I do, before we kind of get more into it, I do want to say that there are trigger warnings for mentions of Harry Potter and the author in this book, which this book came out prior to all of that, so I think it's kind of understandable. Also, the fact that she has a trivia team that is called "You're a Quizzard, Harry," so it's definitely there's definitely a lot of that in there, but it all works out. Um, but overall, I thought it was an okay book, and it's just I liked it, but it's definitely going to be a forgettable read for me. A lot of Casey West books are like that. It will be completely forgettable for me, even if I have a great time with it. Um, that being said, I didn't expect there to be any romance in this book. I was under the impression that it was just a a regular contemporary, and for the most part it is, but I did find myself kind of rooting for the romance even before we knew it was going to happen in the book. But yeah, for me it was 3 stars. I listened to the audiobook, which I thought was done really well. And I did like the bullet journal aspects in between some of the chapters. And I do also agree with the little bit of inheritance games vibes for discovering who her father is. And I guess we can just go into spoilers wherever anybody wants to start.
Before we jump into stuff, does your copy of the book have the discussion questions? I didn't get to read what they were, but I did see that the ebook had them. So I thought maybe it would be interesting to see what they were asking in there.
It does. Let's see. There's 14 questions. Do you want me to start with the first one?
Sure. Or whichever sounds appealing to you.
Let's see. These sound like essay questions.
They kind of are. I mean, they're to prompt discussion, so they tend to be thorough.
Well, I guess I'll just read the first one, and then while you guys answer, I'll skim through the other ones. At the outset of the novel, Nina appears very happy, although she prefers to be alone. How does that change by the end of the novel, and what role does solitude play in your life?
Did you want to go first, Kat?
Here's my thing. I hate when people think alone is the same as being lonely. It's not the same thing. And I feel like there's a lot of this in the book where, for example, when she's she's being overwhelmed and she asks, was it Tom to leave her alone? And he wouldn't. And he doesn't understand that she is not wanting to be, she just needs some alone time to get her emotions in check and to get her mind in check. And I completely understood her, and I wanted him to leave her alone. But I feel like sometimes in this book, other characters, and I feel like the author was trying to portray that other people don't understand this whole thing of you want to be alone doesn't necessarily mean you want to be lonely. You just kind of sometimes need that quiet to reset yourself. And this question, I don't like the way it's worded. Maybe it's just me, but it's completely okay to want to be alone. And I don't, this whole thing of wanting it just the question make it sound like being in solitude is a negative thing, and it's really not.
So what I think was really cute and maybe not understood by everyone was how they were talking to each other at the end, because her and Tom were let's be alone together kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was adorable, because obviously they both knew what they were talking about. And yeah, she was freaking out, and I could totally understand that, but I also did understand how Tom was feeling, because he was kind of well, you can still be alone, you could still go to sleep, you could still, I'll just be here not wanting anything from you. He just wanted to be supportive, so I get that too. But I like the way they talked about anxiety in this book, and I liked the phone call that happened between her and her nanny, and how her nanny was what should you do? And she was nothing. The answer is nothing. If I don't know what to do, I should do nothing. And that was really calming to me, because seriously, when you're dealing with anxiety, the last thing you want to do is make a snap decision that's going to go wrong. So you just kind of need to wait it out, because you don't want to be making decisions in that mindset. But as far as how being alone is represented in my life as an introvert, I relate to the fact that being around too many people and having too many things going on is super overwhelming. And so I need that alone time to recharge, whether it's with books or whatever the case is. So I get it.
I think if there's anything that the pandemic taught me, it's that I really like my house. And, pre-pandemic, I used to pack my schedule and I would always want to be doing something, like going out with somebody, something like that. But then the pandemic happened and that couldn't happen. And I found that I really liked my house. So granted, now I've kind of been getting a little busier, but I relish in days that I can stay home, especially like when we were planning the wedding and I would have 2 days off. And the first day off, I would always be with my mom doing something wedding related. I always made sure that the next day, which was always a Sunday, I would make sure that that was my I have to stay home day. Like I would go weeks without seeing Will's family because I was like, I have to stay home. I'm like, I can't go out right now. And it's just like, it's like you said, Desiree, it's like a recharge thing. And even like what you were saying about like being like overwhelmed by various things, like with too much happening, that happens to me, not with people, but well, kind of with people. It's my perfect example is if we're making dinner and Will is talking to me and we also have the vent on for whatever we're cooking, but music is also playing, something's got to stop. The vent has to be shut off. He has to stop talking. The music has to go off because I can't, too much is going on. So yeah, it's just sometimes you just need to be alone or in the quiet or alone and in the quiet to have that recharge moment.
And I don't know how you guys feel, but like I've always felt this way, that I hate it if I have something going on both days of my weekend. Like then it could be something small. It could be like a half-hour event, an hour event, no big deal, right? Because like that's only 1 hour out of the entire day, but it's still enough to feel like I did not get a break. Like I literally, like just the way that Nina does, because he was looking at her planner and he was like, it says you're doing nothing. She was like, no, but nothing is something. Like I plan my weekend to sit around and do nothing. Like, so I totally related to the fact that she had that like put in her planner.
Yeah.
Or even like if I don't like, so let me tell you my plan that was today before it hit the fan. Sunday is my don't leave the house day, but today I was going to have a filming day. So even if I don't leave the house or I just want to be by myself, I can still get things that I want to do done. I wanted to film some videos this morning. I wanted to work on something else. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. Just being home and having my to-do list of things that I want and or need to do, even if it's just around the house, is so nice.
For me, it was moving out of my sister's house. Being alone in the house like I am right now is the best thing ever. Like I love my parents, don't get me wrong, but my favorite days of the week is Friday nights and Saturdays because they're not here. It's just me.
Well, you and your bunnies.
So
Yeah.
I guess I'm just going to go through all the. discussion questions here. Nina loves books and is a self-proclaimed introvert. What does she find so appealing about reading? Do you think both extrovert and introverts can be passionate about reading books? How do you think the experience is similar and different for both personality types? Absolutely, it can be both. Personality types can enjoy reading.
I think anyone and everyone can enjoy reading. I guess it's just how they demonstrate their love. I don't know. What were you going to say, Desiree?
I was just going to say that I think the experience might be a little bit different, though.
Yeah, but absolutely. But I think that both will still be able to enjoy reading.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think part of the reason that Nina loved books so much was because not only was she an introvert, but she was an introvert that struggled with anxiety and with change. And so because of that, she wasn't just an introvert. She was like definitely a homebody. She didn't want to travel. She didn't want to leave her little bubble. And the books that she read allowed her to do that, allowed her to see other things that she might never see. And so I think that's why they were so important, not just to her, but like obviously to like other members of her family too. Before you go on to
question, I'd like to particularly. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say before you go on to the next question, I really like the way the author captured the love of books and the experience of a bookworm and a book lover, in regards to how kind of isolating and lonely an activity it can be, because when you're so excited about these stories and these books and you have no one to talk to about them, you know what I'm saying? Like how great is it that like Book Talk and Booktube exists, but also like our friendship, because you know, I don't have a ton of people in my life that read at the same level or read the same stories or read like, and you just want to kind of scream, like you read a good book, you're like, I need to talk to somebody about this, and not having that. Like I really felt for her little sister. And so I was glad that they met each other, and then that she, because she was like, they call me weird at school.
Like, go on the internet, girl. That's where you find your people. That's how me and Chloe found each other. That's how me and you found each other. Yeah.
So go ahead.
So this next question, I'm going to shorten it because there's like 5 questions in this one question.
Yeah,
but the thing that I particularly want to know, especially from Desiree, is do you feel that the pages of Nina's planner that were included in the book added to the narrative?
I did. At first I kind of, because I was listening to the audiobook, at first I was kind of like, what are they doing here? Because I wasn't seeing it visually, but then I was like, no, I need to be reading this along. And being able to see them visually and the way she was just like organizing and planning her life, I think it added a bit of comedy. And I think it was interesting just seeing like where her priorities were for the week, what was happening for her for the week. It just kind of set the tone for each chapter.
That's what I was going to say. I love those little snippets because I only listened to the audiobooks. I didn't have anything visual, but I was looking forward to all those, her little notes, because it told me what was going to happen in the chapter. I was like, okay, I'm ready.
And and there were times where like she had no idea what she was going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But there was one in particular where it was like breakfast, Tom, lunch, Tom, dinner, Tom. So I think it added to the story.
Well, you also kind of answered I didn't say this one, but you also kind of answered how did Nina's planner pages reflect her state of mind? I mean, it gave us a sneak preview at what was going on, but also her emotions around whatever happened to be happening at that time in the book. Nina's mind is constantly moving, filling with ideas, facts, and information. How does this help and hinder Nina? And what do you think are the pros and cons of having such an active brain?
I think like it adds to her. I feel like it adds to her anxiety.
Absolutely.
Because I'm also someone who thinks too much, and sometimes it does become overwhelming to the point where I would waste a whole day just laying in bed because I can't do anything because my brain is going 100 miles an hour and I need not move.
Yeah, there's definitely days that I spend like thinking about doing things, like all the things I could be doing. And that's what the whole day ends up being, just me thinking about all the things that I could have been doing to be productive that I just didn't do. But
I would love to be one of those people that has like, feel like Chloe with her like to-do list and actually get them done instead of just writing them down. Because no, I can't be that person.
Wait, but do you write anything down?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, but not for me like to do it one day. Like I'll set like a to-do list for me to do in a month. You know, like I gotta call this guy, I gotta do this errand, I gotta do this. But I'll set like I know how I am, so I'm just gonna give myself a whole month to do it.
That's interesting.
See, my thing is that because I have my addiction to Emily Cromwell Designs stuff, and she has the weekly planning pads, I bought every single one that she's ever put out. So I'm like, I gotta use them. I spent money on them. So for a while I wasn't using them, and then I started. It especially kind of works out with like when you have to like know you have stuff that has to be done around the house or stuff that has to be done in particularly in the week, it's really great. And I get so much satisfaction from just crossing things off on it, especially if I get something done earlier than I had intended to. I'm like, oh, I get to cross, like tomorrow's Monday. I get to cross something off from Wednesday. Like, there's just so much satisfaction with it, I feel like.
Yeah.
And not just that, but like there's this weight, right? Because there's just so many thoughts happening all at the same time, and you feel in your brain like you're trying to hold on to all these like balloons, right? That like at any point, if you let go of the string, they're gonna fly away. And when you write it down, it allows you to release some of that tension and some of that energy that you're using to hold on to all the things that you need to do. But they have said that like anxiety is a sign of intelligence. So the smarter you are, the chances are you have more anxiety, because you're analyzing and reanalyzing and thinking of outcomes and not being present because you're thinking about what's going to happen in the future and how things are going to go. And so, yeah, I get how it's hard for her.
I'm going to jump ahead about 5 questions just because this one is interesting. In addition to her deep love of books, Nina also loves all forms of popular culture, including movies and TV shows. Do you think that it is common, or do most people prefer one over the other? I think it's fairly common for everybody to enjoy most forms of entertainment, at least in a visual sense.
Wait,
that's an interesting question, actually.
Read the question again.
In addition to her deep love of books, Nina also loves all forms of popular culture, including movies and TV shows. Do you think that it is common, or do most people prefer one over the other? So, like, for me,
I think most people prefer one over the other, but I think people love all equally, but I think there's one they gravitate towards more.
Yes. So for me, in my weird brain, I like both, but I like how short a TV show is and easier to get through than a movie is. So
I also like that.
Wait, did you say you like how short
a TV show yeah, like an episode? Yeah, 30 minutes for a TV show episode versus versus 2 hours for a movie.
I'm like, no. I'm like the opposite. I would prefer, depending on what it is, though. Like what they're doing, I would prefer a movie because it's shorter than a TV series, because you would have to watch like 20 episodes or whatever.
But I feel like, because for me, if it's like a Wednesday night and I have to work the next day, I would rather watch a TV show because I can watch that quicker, like while I'm eating, than staying up later and watching a longer movie, because then I feel like I can't do anything else except get ready for bed after that.
So I think this is an interesting question, because I feel like streaming platforms have kind of changed this a little bit, because mostly my whole life I have said I don't watch too much TV, and it's not that I don't watch TV shows and I'm not interested in TV shows. It's that I'm not the type of person that has the TV on all the time. You know, like there are just those people, you come in, TV is on. Before they go to bed, they have a TV in their bedroom, TV is on. Like they have the TV on during dinner. And I'm not one of those people. My TV is mostly off all the time, unless we've made a very specific window of time to watch something. And so that's why I think streaming has kind of changed that a little bit, because I can still catch things when I want to, and I don't have to be glued to the TV at 7 on a certain day when it's like airing or whatever the case is. So.
Yeah, and even before streaming really hit its big boom, DVR was great when you had cable. And I remember, like, when I lived with my mom still, I had so many shows that I would watch and I would stay up with. So having the DVR and then just having a day of just getting through all of the recorded shows was great.
So I really feel like I
Yes.
connected with this book because of all the pop culture references, and I'm wondering if that was one of the reasons maybe you didn't, because maybe some of the references were just kind of going over your head because they were before your time, kind of a thing. Like,
I mean, I found the most references were like the Harry Potter ones. And also, well, some of them were just like not even references. It was just like facts, like the trivia facts that, like, oh, I didn't know that. Especially at the end when they were having like the trivia final. A lot of it I felt like was that for me.
You were not reading along and listening to the audiobook, right? Because I know Kat said she wasn't. Okay, because what was funny was there was a lot of discrepancies between the text and the audiobook. Like sometimes there was full paragraphs of stuff that was in the audiobook that was not in the text. Sometimes it was like minor details that were changed. Sometimes it was errors that were changed. Like for example, at one point they're talking about an alien quote, and she attributed the alien quote to the wrong character in the movie in the text, and it was like corrected in the audiobook.
Is the audiobook like the latest version of the book? Did you maybe buy like a first edition of the book where they later corrected
I got
those?
them both from the library, so maybe the library just has a really old edition of the ebook and maybe it was like updated at some point. But even like her nephew's name was different in the ebook than it was in the audiobook.
Because I don't remember what book it was. I had this happen before where I was reading a book and listening to the audiobook, and the audiobook sometimes would have different like names or words, or like even a sentence was eliminated or was included. And I realized that the version of the book that I had was like an older edition, and then she had released updated edition of the book, and so at least that's what I found out. But
like, Chloe, what was Peter's last name in the paperback?
You're gonna have to give me a minute to.
Peter was her nephew.
Find that. I know there was like I remember they made like a family tree, but it might have been visualized in the book. I can't remember. Here, give me a few minutes if you want to talk about something else.
Okay. So I thought that was interesting, especially when there was like full paragraphs where I was like, I'm reading along, and then I'm like, where the fuck am I? Because like the audiobook was saying something that wasn't in front of me anymore.
That's interesting. Okay.
But with, I don't know, I just love the pop culture references so much. Like so much. I thought they were good. And like, with the trivia, sometimes it felt like she was kind of just throwing information at us, but it was like funny and it was quirky. But the pop culture references, I feel like she really used to capture certain like moments or vibes or emotion. And they were just really funny. But the other thing that I thought was really funny in the book was the entire conversation that they had about dick pics. And then the way they were talking about like what they hate about men afterwards. I thought that conversation was hilarious too.
I remember that.
It was super funny. And even the little kids that were like, watching her talk to Tom and like shouting their little opinions from over the shelves and stuff, they were all just very witty and really funny. And so
sorry, I'm gonna change topics because I just thought of this. Did they ever pay their back rent?
I assumed,
because it frustrated me. I'm not gonna lie. Like I thought that the landlord was so nice, and then they found out that he like was gonna give the building or rent that part of the building to a makeup company, and then there was a protest. And I'm like, did they ever get that resolved? I don't remember. Did they ever pay him the thousands of dollars?
I think the assumption is that they did with the money that Nina got from her dad.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay,
but I'm still giving this 5 stars. However, that ending was kind of weak. Like you find out that they got stoned on cupcakes, and then it's just like you know, Nina's basically like, oh yeah, I have a passion for sharing books with people. And then it was like, and so that's what she did. And like, it's just like a paragraph that's pretty much like, you know, it kind of sums up that she wanted to be a partner. She wanted to buy the building or whatever the case was so that she could keep working there. And that was like, that was it. They lived happily ever after.
I found his last name. It's Peter Reynolds.
Okay, in my ebook, it says Peter Oliver.
Yeah, you definitely have an old version of the book then.
That's weird.
But that's interesting then that she has an old version, because I just checked. Mine's a first edition. So now I'm confused.
Right?
I know sometimes there's like, I don't remember any words.
First
like,
edition, but like what printing? Would they change? Like, would they update a book on the second printing, but first edition? I don't know.
Well, I was wondering if maybe it was like
the
a UK edition or something. I don't think I'd have a UK edition ebook.
So this first edition, July 2019. When did the book come out?
Let's see.
Maybe you have the latest edition, Desiree.
But for it not to line up with the audiobook, because the audiobook usually comes out later. What was it called? The Bookish Life? The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. What did you say? When did your book come out?
July
9th, 2019. Okay, yeah, that's what it says on Amazon. And like the way I get it from the library, I get the book from Amazon. So like weird. Super weird. I'm gonna Google this later to find out if there's like any explanations. Because like at first I was like, this is weird, this is weird. And then at a certain point, I started highlighting things and making notes of what the audiobook said. So like they even changed the age of one of the characters. In the book, it said she was 8, but in the audiobook, it said she was 6. There's a point where somebody asked her, oh, what did you think, you were a virgin birth? Is what the ebook said, but in the audiobook said immaculate conception. So it was just like weird little things that were changed.
That's interesting.
Wait, so in the audiobook, was her dad's name William Reynolds, or was it William Oliver?
No, her dad's name was William Reynolds, but he had so many wives and so many kids, and like I don't know, but her nephew was Peter Oliver. So I mean, but if it was like, I'm sure somewhere that makes sense, right? Maybe it was updated because like if it was her nephew, then maybe by marriage his name would have changed, you know, like because his mom would have married somebody else who would have changed his last name. So maybe, oh, but why isn't it Oliver in there? Never mind. I don't have a good explanation.
I don't know if we're going to get an explanation.
And there were a lot of kids and a lot of characters. But yeah, I was so excited. I was so freaking excited about what her dad left her.
He left her a car.
Yes. No, but not any car.
A really cool car that you can't drive.
He left her the Knight Rider car, man.
Which I found funny that she did not know. I mean, I don't know how to drive stick.
I don't know how to drive stick either. But
okay, no, I'm gonna lie. When she got in the car and like the mechanic guy who worked on the car for I don't know how long, I thought that for some reason, like
they were gonna get together.
Yes. I thought that. Well, I was like, wait, what happened to Tom? Because I feel like there's some like flirting going on over here. It was just, yeah.
I think it was more of like a fatherly gesture that he was, you know, because he was such good friends with her father.
Yeah. And but then I was like thinking, how old is this man? This is weird. But then Tom came back and I was like, okay.
I literally sent a picture of the car to John, and I was like, "Hey, do you think getting this would be cheaper than getting a Corvette?" And he was like, "Yeah, but you'll never find parts for it because Pontiac doesn't exist anymore." And I was like, "Well, that
That's
sucks."
expensive. I mean, but at least she also ended up getting money too, so it's not like
Yeah.
she only got the car.
But I asked him, I was like, "Can we watch all the Knight Rider episodes if we can find them?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." I was like, "All right, we're doing it."
I was trying to see if I could find the part where it said like something about Immaculate Conception or something, but I can't find it. So it doesn't matter.
I wonder who, I'm trying to think of who
Would
she
you
was
like
talking
another
to.
question?
Sure.
Do you think Nina will be permanently changed by discovering her family, or will she remain essentially the same?
I think she was already like permanently changed. Like from
But also, like she also still seemed the same in like her ways of like wanting to be alone and stuff like that. Personality wise, she seemed the same.
I think personality wise she'll be the same, but I feel like her actions, I don't know. I think a little bit of both. Because I can see her trying to maybe be more open with the rest of her family who was willing to talk to her, because I know not all of them are very receptive of her, but I also feel like she's still going to be the same anxious book clubbing person.
Yeah. But I think she had such a unique experience meeting the members of her family that she didn't know existed. And I've never had this experience, but my brother has, because my brother was estranged from his dad for a really long time, and they eventually met up. And he said it blew his mind how much he was like his dad, and they hadn't had any contact. They hadn't seen each other for like 20 something years. So the fact that they still had so much in common kind of blew his mind. And I think that's something that Nina was experienced to see, that like her and her brother Archie both like almost ordered all the same foods, or the way she really hit it off with Peter. And then of course like the way several of them had this love for books.
It was towards the end when she handed the letter off to one of
Lydia.
her sisters, to Lydia, and then Lydia was like something else, like she can see the resemblance between the two of them, and she said that you have the same quirk of the eyebrow that I do, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's cute.
But even in the letter he had said to her, like, "Here, I've given you a gift certificate to go to this restaurant, go take Nina and be nice to each other because you guys would probably really get along."
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I thought all of that was awesome. I think even though she wasn't expecting this whole new family and all these new people in her life, I think she felt connected to them despite not knowing them. So I think like it did change her a little bit. And like she offered really quick to show up for her little sister and to, to pick her up and to bring her to the book club and to talk about books with her, like so much faster than she did with Tom. Because Tom was like, "Hey, let's go on a date." She's like, "See you in 3 weeks." So, she was like, she seemed very willing to drop everything to like work in her sister. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. We're running out of questions, but
okay, hold on.
For Nina, a bookstore or library?
Oh. No, go ahead.
Okay. For Nina, a bookstore or library represents sanctuary. Why do you think that is? Do you feel similarly?
Yes.
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 I feel like there's just so much wonder.
Books are comforting. It's just how it is. I don't know how to explain it, but they're just comforting. Even when like I don't feel like reading, like I'm going through my book slump right now, it's still comforting to go to my library and look at the books that I have, even though I don't want to feel like picking any of them up. But
have you unpacked your books yet?
Most of it, yeah. There's still like
what?
Most of it. There's still like one box left that I'm just being really lazy about it.
Yeah, John and I hung out and like helped her empty a bunch of boxes before I took off.
Yeah.
Let's see. Nina struggles badly with anxiety, which is often quite debilitating. What are her coping mechanisms? And do you think there are healthy ways to deal with her stress?
Well, one of her coping mechanisms is obviously planning things out, and I like hardcore relate to that. I try to start my bullet journal on Sunday evenings, so that I'm prepared for the week and I can fill things out. But sometimes I don't get to it, and like I'll get to Wednesday and like my anxiety is like really ramping up, and I'm like, oh my God, why am I so anxious? And I realize it's because I didn't write things down, I didn't plan things out. And it's kind of like this snowball effect. So she definitely uses her planner to cope with some of that. And I think she was like doing some breathing techniques, but also being able to kind of sit in that discomfort takes practice, because a lot of people feel uncomfortable and they want to do something right away. Like, for example, her dad turned to drinking to deal with his anxiety, right? Which is not the healthiest coping mechanism. So for her to be able to kind of pause and take a break, and even alone time if that's what she's needed, just so she can get past that period of overwhelm and anxiety, I think is a good coping mechanism. So she's not making poor decisions in like a heightened sense of emotion. What do you think, Kat?
No, I agree with you. I think having her list of to-do lists, it gives her comfort, and it's kind of like what you said. If you don't create your list or her coping mechanism, if she doesn't do it, it kind of amps up her anxiety.
Okay, let me see if we have any more questions.
And I'm gonna
have like 2 or 3 more questions.
I'm gonna look at like what I highlighted, because it was like a lot of stuff, I think.
Tom is not a bookish person, but his character complements Nina's. Why do you think Nina and Tom work so well together as a couple? And how do they complement one another?
Okay, first, can I say that I cried? I cried. Like, as soon, this whole time, she's like, oh, he smells like sawdust. And like, you know, she's asking him, is he a carpenter? Is he a carpenter? When he was like, let's go back to my place. And she was like, what? You make bookshelves? I fucking cried, because I was like, oh my God. Not only was I not expecting that, but what other, like, what better compliment to her could it have been for like a bookworm who's just like probably has a ton of books. And like, we joke about that in my house all the time, where I'm like, well, I'm not going to get rid of my books. And John's always like, you just need more shelves. And I'm like, yes, I just need more shelves. So for him to be able to like make those for her.
Exactly. I don't think he needs to be necessarily like a bookworm. He doesn't need to be like that person that is next to her reading every single book with her. There's other things that he does that kind of complements her bookish self. In this case, he builds bookshelves, which is you're right, it's absolutely perfect. And I think
it was adorable.
It's just someone that is there and understands your love of books and kind of compliments you in that way. It's kind of like what you said with John. You're not going to get rid of your books, so he suggests to find more places for the books, not necessarily get rid of your books. That's kind of like complementing each other. So,
and I think I don't know who she was talking to. It may have been Lydia, but I have it highlighted here because it really resonated with me. The person said, some people take energy, some people give energy. Occasionally you get lucky and you find someone whose energy balances your own and brings you into neutral. And I feel like that's what Tom did for her. So
Yeah.
So like she was high anxiety, but he was pretty chill. And so they kind of balance each other out. And even though he wasn't bookish, he was still like really smart and on the trivia team and knew lots of like random trivia. So like, you know, if
I think you have to be a little bit bookish in order to.
Well, yeah. It sounds like he was reading Wikipedia.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. I don't know. I feel like he is probably a little bit
they
bookish.
both had their own
strengths.
They both had their own trivia team, so it's not like they didn't have any interests like that.
I will say though, of like all the things, there wasn't much that I didn't like about Nina, but she was definitely a bookish snob. Like multiple times she was like, I can't date someone that doesn't read, which is funny because at some point I remember when like I broke up with John, somebody was like, why'd you? I was like, he doesn't read. I literally broke up with him. I was like, I can't marry him. He doesn't read. So I relate to that. I understand.
I've got one more question from the discussion. Los Angeles is a major city, but Larkmont is clearly a very defined neighborhood with a small town atmosphere. Are you surprised by that aspect of Los Angeles, and does it conflict with the way the city is normally portrayed in popular culture?
I didn't even think about that. It didn't even cross my mind. So I don't have anything to say.
Nope, I did not get small town vibes at all because they mentioned LA so much. Then I was just picturing it in like stereotypical LA. I mean, I have visited, so there was a specific bookstore that I was thinking of in like Studio City, but I wasn't getting like small town vibes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we would like to talk about, discuss with this book?
Let me see.
Oh yeah, you're looking through your highlights.
Yeah. So I thought it was funny where she's trying to make a date with him and she's like, I like planning. And he's like, I saw that. She said, it makes me feel better. Better than what? Better than chaos, better than unpredictability. But doesn't that mean you also lose out on serendipity if everything is planned and nothing is surprising? And like she continues to be like, no, there's always some curveball that life throws, so there's still surprises. And I relate to that too. I know that being able to deal with change is an executive function. And so for people who have ADHD, they struggle with that. They struggle with something changing, with there being a surprise. And so I was kind of curious if maybe she had like ADHD because of some of the things that she said, because that tends to be fairly linked to anxiety as well. Let's see. I'm trying not to pick like the page long quotes. Oh, here she's talking about anxiety again. Do you get anxiety? She asked. He nodded. I do. It used to get worse, but I take medication for it now. You? Yeah, I have Xanax for when it gets really bad. Sometimes it does get really bad. As long as I keep on top of things, it's manageable, but I don't do well with surprises. I'm easily thrown. I guess you could put it like that. I feel like I don't have a deep well of calm. I feel like I was lightly misted with calm, and it doesn't take a lot for it to evaporate. She grinned. Not sure this metaphor is going to last all that much longer either. But oh my god, so many highlights. I cannot wait to reread this book. And I don't often reread books, so I'm excited. Is there anything else we want to say about her and Tom? I was asking Kat like before our discussion. I was like, "Why do you think Chloe gave this a 3?" And she was like, "I didn't know Chloe gave this a 3." And I was like, "Was there any spice? Was there romance? Like, what was missing?" Like,
there was definitely no spice.
Yeah,
there was definitely romance.
I mean, I don't know. There was okay, so it was like kind of like Fade to Black spice, I guess. But they did it on her reading chair in her little reading nook.
I mean, yeah, things happen, but not spicy.
No, it wasn't on page. But yeah, no, I like them as a couple. I kind of feel sad that Tom, you know, had his, well, I guess everybody has insecurities, but that Tom was concerned about not being smart enough or her not liking him because he didn't read or, but Tom was tall. That's she mentioned it a lot. But I don't know. I think it was funny that she kept being like, he's probably just into sports. Like, it's okay to be into sports. But he's also on a trivia team. I don't know. He does more than one thing. And he builds bookshelves.
Is there anything else we wanted to talk about?
We can go into final thoughts if you want.
Do you want to go ahead and start then?
Sure. My final thoughts are that I give this 5 stars. I thought it was an amazing book. I will be checking out other things by Abbi Waxman. The pop culture references were awesome. I think they lean heavier to like probably people my age because there was references to like the first Aliens, to Knight Rider. There was a lot of like just fun facts in there. I thought all the characters were super unique and memorable despite there being so many of them. And I think it's just it's like a warm blanket. And we always talk about how like contemporary romance is kind of like a palate cleanser. And I think this was that, but also like just something fun that I will go back to. Like, I know you said that you felt like you're never going to remember it and you're never going to go back to it. I don't feel that way about this book. I feel like I am going to remember it. So 5 stars.
Okay, I gave this 4 stars, kind of in between the two of them. I really liked the story. I don't think I will ever pick it up again, but I don't think I'm going to just randomly forget it. It was a really enjoyable read. I really liked the main character of Nina. I think she was interesting to read. I really liked her personality. She was very quirky and bubbly, and I did like the romance between her and Tom. And I did like the whole aspect of her finding out that she has this whole other family that she never knew existed, and that she's part of the will, and she got this really cool car out of it and some money. But I just like that it kind of threw her life in a loop, and it was just really fun to read from her perspective. So I did give it 4 stars.
And I gave it 3 stars. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it. I enjoyed the story while I was reading it, but I do think it is a story that I will eventually forget. Excuse me. But that's not necessarily a bad thing against the author. I'm still considering, there is a companion book to this one, and I'm still considering if I'm going to read it or not. I haven't decided yet. But yeah,
who does the companion book follow? Like,
I think it follows a character that, like, I don't think it follows a character that we met in this book. I was reading the synopsis of it, and I can't remember what the character's name is, but it's like, but then she meets her new friends, Nina, something, and somebody else. So I don't think we've met this character yet. It's called Adult Assembly Required. But thank you all for joining us for book club for the month of April. And very quickly, we're going to talk about next month and just kind of some upcoming things for Booktube chicks in general. Next month, we're going to read Beartown by Frederick Bachman. And I don't know anything about this book. So this is what we're going to be reading next month. Desiree, if you have anything to add on this, definitely please add.
The only thing that I know about this book is that it's super popular because I'm on hold for the audiobook. They have 14 copies and I'm like number 40.
Oh my god!
On this waiting for this book.
It's
on Scribd.
It is. What I know is that there's like a very popular town hockey team, and I think that someone on the hockey team is accused of like sexually assaulting somebody in the town, and it's about how that event impacts the entire town and the hockey team and all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
So this is the hockey book. I knew there was a hockey book that he'd written, but I didn't know which one it was. Our live show for this is going to be on May 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be on this channel. So if you want to join us for that, definitely make sure to come back on that date. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Booktube Chicks. We talk about everything there and give like most up-to-date information regarding the live shows. A week from today, on May 7th, Desiree and I are going to be having our quarterly romance book club live show. We do have a special guest. I can't remember her Twitter handle right off the top of my head. Let me see if I have it. But we're going to be talking about Priest by Sierra Simone. Let me see. I know I followed her on Twitter, so I should have it.
I don't think she uses Twitter that much anymore, but so her YouTube is Castle Library. It's Princess.
Yes.
From Castle Library.
So all three of us will be talking about Priest by Sierra Simone. And that's going to be on May 7th at 6 p.m. Eastern on Desiree's channel, which is linked in the description below. And then after that, if I can remember the date, I think it's May 19th that we're doing Pages and Pals.
Yes.
Okay, May 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're doing Pages and Pals on Kat's channel, also linked in the description below. We're just reading whatever we're currently reading for an hour, and that's always a fun time. That's my favorite live show to do with you guys. But thank you all so much. That's everything coming up with the Booktube Chicks. And we hope to see you at an upcoming live show. So we will see you then. Bye.